Well, that's new. Well, I don't know why it's running like... I've got 2 weeks to get this thing ready for a 1,000-mile road trip. I'd like to get this car on the road before then so that I can put some miles on it locally and hunt down any issues I run into without being on the road. The night's over, and here's where I'm at. So the belt is on. That means the water pump pulley made it on. We've got the new power steering pump pulley on, and I brake cleaned that really, really well. I broke the tensioner down there. At this point, I need to liberate another tensioner or buy a new tensioner. Those tensioners at the moment are $150 each, so I'm not keen to replace it. The O2 sensor on this bank number one right here, does not fit. I have to basically probably drill a new hole in the exhaust or the other exhaust that's on the floor and put a new O2 bung in. It's the next evening, and I'm working on the exhaust. So hopefully we can get this up tonight. I added a bung here, still has to be welded in. Coming back here, I learned something. You can see these brackets that hold this section of exhaust up into the body of the car where they would normally bolt into. There's usually a bracket right here, and same on the other side. This car does not have that because I guess it's a 318 and they didn't get that. So I had to clean up the brace or bracket or whatever it is from that car. This is the one I cleaned up. I just wire wheeled it and painted it. Last night was objectively a disaster. So the O2 sensor's in, but it's cross-threaded in. Right now it's in there quite firm. On top of that, coming back here, this bolt here was also cross-threaded, so I had to fix that with a tap. So now it's all good. Here's the current situation. I've got the muffler up, as you can tell it's unsupported, not fully bolted in the back, but it is secure. This exhaust on this side is not factory, and what they did is they cut the old exhaust off and then welded it onto this new piece. So that's what this is, and that allows it to have the BMW factory flange on it. Unfortunately, when they did this, it appears that it was not measured correctly because this gap here is too large. So now the problem is when I put a gasket in there, it wants to fall out, and I have to do a lot of tightening here to try and close this gap. You can tell that this is not the first time they had this issue. The bracket is bent. It's got a C shape to it like this. And when we come to the other side, it gets better. I did not do this right here. The entire bracket is cracked. It is physically 2 pieces. I'm still gonna try and put it together because I don't really have another option. I guess the other option really is to cut this and extend it to get it to fit correctly. I have the exhaust about as on as it's gonna go. So this is all tightened down. Obviously all the wrong hardware, but it should work. And the problem here is it did pull everything in. I'm not convinced this one's gonna seal back here. It pulled it out to like this side of the car. And as you can see, the fitment on this exhaust is absolutely terrible. It really needs to be over to the right, and you'll see that as you get further down here. See, the hanger is all stretched to the left, and I do remember it being like this on the donor car to some extent as well. And then as you get to this is where we've got a problem. This is the new muffler, and the muffler itself hangs and seems to fit perfect. Of course, the tips are bent, or the tip is bent, but this is up against the subframe. I mean, it is touching. It's not like the M6 where there is a small gap there. This one is actually touching, and I can't even move it. I need a pry bar to move it off the subframe. So this is literally riding on the subframe right now. I have an extreme suspicion this is not gonna seal, and it's gonna have a pretty major exhaust leak as well as an exhaust rattle. We'll find out shortly. Well, that's new. Well, I don't know why it's running like crap, but I think I found the problem. This vacuum line for the brake booster was off. Probably got moved around. I need to get a hose clamp line out, of course. We'll try it one more time. Oh, it runs much better now. All right. We have exhaust. We have an exhaust leak, which the other car had, to be fair. So obviously I will need to fix this at some point. It sounds pretty quiet overall. Yeah, it's got a pretty bad exhaust leak under there. I'll see what I can do about that. But it's functional for right now. At this point, when you get the cluster installed, before we install the cluster, I need to do some prep work on this car. It has the border control button it presses in, and I want to make use of that function for Gauge.S. If we look at this car, it does not have the border control function. It is only a turn signal. So if you press in on it, it doesn't do anything. I've learned a few things. You can pull this assembly out. There are tabs on either side right there, and on the opposite side right here that slide in. So you just press both of them down and it pulls right out. This is the board computer version. You can see the BC. Naturally, if we look at the board computer version, it's wired differently than the non-board computer version. So this one that came out of the donor car has this connector on the end. The one that's in my car is wired like this. It's got a single pin connector and a ground screwed into the steering column. It's crunch time, so I'm filming less. I just installed a Gauge.S. It's pretty easy. So you can see that little orange panel where the econometer used to go. That should be a display for information now. It needs external input to be able to change the parameters you want to look at. So what I've done is I put this connector on the back. A matching one is up here. That is being fed from the board controls. When you press this in, it should control the Gauge.S on this. This is the connector that plugs into the car. So I wired the harness for the horn back. So this one is off the old switch. And then I added a pigtail for the ground, and I brought the standard ground from the factory back down to this. So everything on this should be wired exactly how it used to be, except now it has this extra button. This is for the board control button. It's going to get tied into the ground underneath the steering wheel in the exact same spot as the factory ground. There we go. Got Gauge.S, 1.3.H, battery voltage, 13. Button works. Don't have an accelerometer hooked up, I don't think, right now. I'll do that later. Cool. So it works. Currently filling the AC system. You can see it looks like it's working. High side pressure came up. I put 3 cans of this oil in it here. And now I'm gonna put 2 cans of this, and it needs another 100 grams on top of that, and it should be good to go. Bottom of the car should be taken care of. The interior is obviously still fully torn apart. We'll get to that. However, this is now the engine bay. That you see is to put the cover over top of it, but right now I need to reflash it. It's currently 12:50 in the morning, Monday morning, and I want to try to clean the garage out and take it out on a test drive just around the neighborhood. There we go. Turn the lights on, lights work. Smooth. Wow, clutch is picking up like right off the floor. Guess that's a good thing. I don't know if it's a good thing or not. We're going about 4 miles. No problems, not overheating, runs pretty well. Definitely has an exhaust leak, which we already knew. This exhaust fits together absolutely horribly. I don't think I have enough time to fix it before I leave. First test drive, success. Well, this has been an adventure. I just got back, so it's about 55 miles total on the car since the swap. Almost got run over on I-270, which is a major highway around here, some serious traffic on it. So I got off the highway, I had to drive down the shoulder for about a half mile. Got off the highway, the car was barely running. I pulled into the park and ride, scanned it for codes. There were no codes. It was idling smooth. I turned the car off, turned it back on, fires up, and then I go through the parking lot, floor it in first gear, and it just falls flat on its face like it's gonna die. And I'm like, what's going on? So I tried to limp it back. I was about halfway back, and then the car wouldn't even go up even the most modest of inclines. So I was able to get pulled over into another parking lot. I heard this weird noise. It sounded like a vacuum leak, and it finally dawned on me. It was this. It's the Evap system. I couldn't get the gas cap off when I pulled over. What wound up happening is I connected vacuum directly to the gas tank because the Evap system in the 328 actually works differently than it did in the 318. That's what caused me to break down on I-270. It's a little after 11 o'clock on the night right before I'm supposed to leave. I'm supposed to be leaving bright and early, probably like 4 o'clock in the morning. You can see the interior's coming together. Don't know if I have a shift boot. I was parking the car outside, getting ready to leave. I saw gas leaking out of the car. I had previously previously smelled fuel, and I replaced the evap line to fix the charcoal canister issue. Thought that's where it was coming from. I was wrong. It was running down onto the drive shaft, onto the exhaust. Here we are under the car, and if you can see that right there, almost looks like electrical tape or something. That's where the drive shaft was rubbing. And that's also approximately where the fuel is coming from when the car is running. And it runs down the drive shaft, hits the heat shield, and drops off. The only option here, as far as I know, I don't think you can repair fuel tanks, is to put another fuel tank in it. And I'm supposed to leave tomorrow. I got the drive shaft out. This is unbelievable to me. Literally, right there, that little seam is where it's leaking. It just barely got into it enough for it to leak. Dropping the tank out. Sorry, need to get the gas out. Of course, the answer is a siphon. I siphoned. This was a completely empty container. I don't even see it, but it's there now. But when the gas came out, it rushes into your mouth. Wow. The old fuel tank is out, so that's on the ground right now. And I'm working on trying to pull the tank out of this donor car. I've got the fuel tank draining right now. It's been a nightmare because everything's so rusty under there. Every time you brush up against something, you have rust that just falls down. Now we just have to try and get the tank in, get it all back together. As you can tell, got a bit of a mess here. Well, I'm gonna get to it. Not really sure what time it is right now, but it's back together, it's running. Checking for fuel leaks at the moment, and I don't have any, so I think we're good to go. All right, it's like 5 a.m. I'm leaving right now. Getting ready to enter Virginia. So it looks like we're about 28 miles in. So far, so good. 115 miles in, passing Kings Dominion outside of Richmond. Made it to North Carolina. Stopping for some food. I'm in South Carolina, mile marker 116. The car is running okay. I have to have the windows up because the rear window in this on the top started to blow out, and I had the window down. Another update on the road. Still in South Carolina, about mile marker 70. Just lost the radio, doesn't work anymore. Welcome to Florida. We made it into the state, so we're heading to Jacksonville now. 832 miles in, almost to our destination. Everything's good so far. I'm within towing range, so should be smooth sailing from here.